back to Blockchain on Booze, this time of the week where we gather the wheelers and dealers of the sphere, get them drunk and have them answer questions. And today, the victims, luckily for us, 2 women on the panel. Loving that. Of course, first victim, Jaguar, Adva Gal of Jaguar. Is great to have you. Got a lot of legal questions today. A very new victim who has no idea but has been sipping the margaritas diligently for the last hour and a half. New victim, Nimrod Lehavi, co-founder and CEO of Simplex. Hello to you. And thank God for the one and only Agada Nameri. Love to have you back. General Manager, 21M Capital. And of course, last but not least, Hochberg always stands as always. We're going to try and break him down today. Co-founder and CEO at Clear. Hello. Hello. Ladies and gentlemen, we can talk about Donald Trump, but we won't. We're going to go to the hottest news in the sphere, the TON postponement. And this has happened just today. In a dramatic move, the much anticipated launch of the TON network, i.e. the Telegram token, has been postponed. On the overnight between Wednesday and Thursday, that's just a few hours ago for us, Telegram sent a letter to investors informing them that they no longer intend to go ahead with their contractually obligated launch date of October 31st, suggesting April 2020. All this in response to the SEC's restraining order prohibiting the company from launching TON and issuing Gram tokens. Okay? Firstly, I want us all to look at some quotes from that letter that came out overnight to investors. Let's have a look at those quotes, if we can see them right now. There we go. We had intended to launch the TON network in late October. However, the recent SEC lawsuit has made that timing unachievable. We disagree with the SEC's legal position and intend to vigorously defend the lawsuit. We are proposing to extend the deadline date in order to provide additional time to resolve the SEC's lawsuit and work with other governmental authorities in advance of the launch of the TON network. First of all, this was the biggest shit that the sphere was waiting for, putting Libra aside. I want to remind everybody that Libra is going up the hill next week. Maybe this is connected. But this is not good for TON investors, and I know that for the sake of full disclosure, there are people on this panel right now that cannot say a word. Okay. Let me ask you this, first of all. I
can only say that probably the only person that is enjoying all of this is you. That's the only thing that I can say about it.
I am not enjoying it. I'm actually very sad, to be honest.
Sad, okay.
I thought that that would show that maybe it doesn't need such a big brouhaha that Libra has constructed, a launch of a token as such. To remind viewers, Telegram owner Pavel Durov, controversial international figure, very much also involved in the Hong Kong protests right now in many, many ways, okay? I have my own sources within this story, not confirmed by 2 sources, but some people in the know are saying that Telegram have bunkered down after the SEC. This all came down because the SEC, about a little bit over a week ago, handed down a very, very, very determined cease and desist letter. So I'm asking you first, Jag.
Yep.
I'm looking at the lingo of TON, okay? They had to launch October 31st. They have already told investors they'll give back the money or possibly give back the money to the American investors. But the language of that, what I just read out, we are proposing, they're proposing a postponement. Is that legal terminology? Did they do it because basically they need the approval of everybody that invested money?
Well, first they took a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, they have to follow their commitment and return the money, at least to the American investors. However, as long as they propose and the other side accepts, the other investors accept that, then there could be a new kind of a contract, a new agreement, or a change to the agreement which is agreed afterwards. Once they're proposing this, they cannot enforce that, right? Otherwise, they'll have to return that money. If they propose that and the other investors accept, then there could be a new change to that. If anyone does not accept that proposal, then they're entitled legally to receive their money back.
Right.
However, even if I may, I'm not the representative.
Theorize. It's okay. Well, theorizing, we know very little.
Even if they have to bring back to pay back the American investors' funds, I have no idea what percentage of their investors are American. But if they return that, and it's not such a, and if it's a small price to
It's a
pay.
substantial amount of American investors.
Yeah, well,
It's a substantial amount.
it depends on the community.
I mean, again, they have said they will return the money if push comes to shove.
Right.
I want to go back to the SEC
Please,
to give everybody an ability to speak on this and how you can speak about it. The SEC, as I mentioned, came out with a very, very, very strong cease and desist letter. Okay, who here believes that they just woke up 10 minutes to midnight?
No way.
I don't think.
You don't think so?
I'm pretty sure they had it ready, just waiting for the right timing to send it. Having said that, with all due respect to the SEC,
Entirely.
and I'm quoting a friend, I don't remember who said that English is not Esperanto, and the US is not the entire world. So, you know, I heard the statistics, and supposedly there's another
I completely agree, but the US still is the leader of the free world. And the US dollar, sadly, whether we like it or not, or gladly, whether we like it a lot or not, is still the leading currency. And I think one of these things here...
Isn't Bitcoin?
Way to go. Cheers for that.
L'chaim or salut. But yes, I mean, at the end of the day, they call the shots on many, many things. We can decide to go against them, but we'll have a very hard time mainstreaming an idea. And I think that's something that the sphere has been facing for a long time. That, you know, we can say, Bafanculo, SEC.
I'm willing to debate that. I think that, you know, to
Then
a certain
debate.
extent, I think that to a certain extent, if the US continues to push away everything to do with the crypto ecosystem will just be more, you know, China-oriented, or at least APAC-oriented.
Right.
More businesses will flourish there, more businesses will start there, more businesses will focus on the population there and less on the US. So at the end, they will lose from this divide. They have to, at some point, understand that it's, you know, if you're fighting an entire global ecosystem, you'll just be left out.
Entirely, but they don't seem to give a shit right now.
Right now.
Right now. And the question is what
Wait
needs
for
to
it,
happen.
wait for
Not
it.
only wait for it. Not only that, FinCEN, you all know what FinCEN is, right? Is also allegedly investigating TON. That is another bit of information that we at BLOCKTV here uncover this week.
So I think it's worth looking at other enforcement actions. So if you look at recent things around Ethereum and the CFTC chairman saying it's a commodity, or if you look at the SEC's action against EOS, where on a $4 billion raise, they gave them like a few tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
It's interesting because you look at what they're doing to Libra, which is sending letters from senators saying, well...
Sending very,
you have a
very
nice
harsh
business
letters that we
there.
haven't seen that kind of lingo before.
Right, and then
Yeah.
SEC
From
giving a cease
senators.
and desist for Telegram, but then on the other side, for other things they're doing, they're slap on the wrist or saying it's totally fine. So, you know, it might not be black and white in the US's reaction to crypto tokens.
I don't think it's a black and white at all. I think there's a lot more that we have to uncover and why the U.S. is condoning certain things, is accepting others or not. Not only that, let's conspiracy theorize this.
Okay.
Lego's like, yeah. The SEC, that hearing of the SEC in TON is scheduled for next week on the Thursday, okay? But on the same week on Wednesday, Mark Zuckerberg goes up the hill to defend Libra. And I think, I see a connection here. I think Washington is out to fight every possible Dogecoin that may endanger it in the near future. You know, to answer you, like, why is Ethereum getting a schmooze as opposed to other? Because they're not as dangerous. I would say, I would argue that they're not as dangerous to the U.S. economy or to the might of the U.S. dollar as the TON coin and as Libra might be. Now, how do you fight that?
I would claim USDT is more dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other stable coins. I mean, basically you're
It's an alternative.
not only that, I mean, you're throwing out the window your monopoly on minting dollars, right?
Right.
And you're just allowing it to a number of companies who have, you know, you have no idea what their fractional reserve looks like. You have-
Assuming that there is no one backing.
Exactly.
yeah,
which is
again,
the
you know,
case.
not blaming anyone, not speculating anything, God
We're
forbid.
speculating galore here.
I think he admitted it. It's not speculation at this point.
Okay, so USDT, USDC, all of the other pegged coins, it's total shit coins. I mean, nobody can really verify what's behind
But
it.
have you guys seen those hearings on Capitol Hill? I don't think, you said something very correct before, that the United States, it would behoove the United States to, you know, embrace projects as such. But they're very far behind in their thinking. Why do we think something like TON scares the shit out of them?
Because it's too strong.
I think that, again, speculating wildly.
No,
that's
speculating
what I like.
wildly.
No, that's what I
and
like
it's
to
okay. Agada is sitting next to you, smiling wildly. Okay.
So my theory that the entire Libra PR move was basically because of the Telegram move. So they saw Telegram coming and they wanted to be first. So they kind of started the PR moves way ahead of time. So just as an example, had they released the network prior to the PR, that would have been out there. It couldn't have been stopped at that point, right? Yeah. So they kind of...
rumor has it, and again I'm saying, rumor has it.
But do you think it wasn't like meticulously planned, orchestrated? They thought about everything? You don't think?
Really?
Do you think it was? Look at the... I mean, it looks like they didn't
fastened.
prepare at all.
It sounds very strange. It sounds very strange that the company like Facebook, that it has all of its strategy planned out and whatever, neglected to think about the impact of...
You're talking about Facebook.
Facebook.
Yeah, no. Then let's hold on.
Hold on,
guys. That leads us into the second. First of all, tone-wise, needless
So wait,
to say.
I didn't finish.
Please finish. There we go.
So
Very
Facebook,
important to finish.
So Facebook ran really fast, really unprepared, and PR'd about it because Telegram was soon to be launched, and all of a sudden the US understood that the same repercussions from the Libra will just happen with Ton, right? It's a global network.
Entirely.
Facing global user remittances, everything's going to be exactly the same, only with less of their control over it. So all of a sudden,
Almost none of their control over
worse.
it. None of their control. I mean, the
I'm
idea
saying
behind
it's even
this
less of a control
was
that
to
they
be
have on
completely,
Facebook.
in a way, decentralized, one can argue. But let's move ahead to Mr. Zuckerberg, because I really would like Agada to speak. You're being very quiet. But Mr. Zuckerberg goes to Washington is our next item. Mark Zuckerberg had a meeting, by the way, guys, yesterday with Maxine Waters behind closed doors. He actually came up to prep that hearing on Capitol Hill yesterday. And this week, as Libra loses partners and closes ranks out of Zuck's DC Spectacular by putting on a brave face on it all, with David Marcus. So 21 organizations have formally joined Libra after Monday's association meeting in Geneva earlier this week. The commitments follow a string of significant departures: Visa, PayPal, MasterCard, Stripe, eBay, and Booking all departed from the Facebook-led stablecoin project. To defend this recent move, David Marcus, the head of Calibra and a very, very, very suave man, gave a rare interview to Bloomberg in which he basically said that everything is okay. Let's have a listen.
You know, a lot of the companies that did leave, at least late last week, they're payments companies, they're financial services companies. Yes. Theoretically, those are companies that are familiar with the road ahead for you guys. Are you worried that they maybe know something that you're unaware of here?
No, and I want to strongly state that. I don't believe we're unaware of anything. I just believe that when your core business is in this space and you probably receive a lot of pressure not to press on.
Okay, first of all, put your phone away.
No, it's a meme. You have to show the meme.
What is the meme? What is the meme? Can we zoom in on the meme? Okay, and the meme says...
That's the dog. Yeah.
This is...
Yeah, that's the meme.
Okay, I want to talk about David Marcus, not just about his meticulously made eyebrows. Seriously.
Envious.
Is it? It's like every fucking hair is in place. But I don't know if you guys saw David Marcus on Bloomberg. Happy-go-lucky. This is all completely locked in the bag. It was a great meeting. Everything is awesome. And no, those partners know nothing about what's going on. What do you think, first of all, about Libra closing ranks with those 21 guys in the bag and everybody who's important on the payments corporate level, such as Visa and PayPal and whatnot, dropping out?
What else could he have said? What else could he have said? What are we expecting to say? Oh no, my friends are dropping out and they're leaving me all alone on this.
Of course he's going to give a spin, but I'm still of that old school of...
He's American.
Yeah. Of course he's going to, and worldwide, of course he's going to spin it. What do we think, though, is behind their departure? Forget what he answered.
I think it's pretty clear. They got letters, threatening letters from senators in Hawaii and other places, basically telling them that if they move along and they continue, supporting Libra, they're going to be under extreme scrutiny, and they're running big businesses,
exactly.
and they don't necessarily think that they need to. Sorry.
all activity, not only
No,
the
if they,
Libra.
if they
Which
follow
is
Libra, they're
like
going
we
to...
will fuck you up.
They will be harassed, basically, by authorities, which is kind of a...
Kind of a
for
mafia
lack
lingo?
of better word, mafia, yeah. And so, they're running big businesses. This probably was a very, very marginal part of what they're doing. And, risk-reward considerations probably led them to drop out.
Can Libra continue without these big names, do you think?
I think that actually it's a concern. If they drop out because they have other businesses which are much more lucrative and interesting and in great magnitude than this, and they're leaving...
It's just existing businesses.
Exactly. And Facebook does as well. And maybe we, the citizens, we the people should be afraid that maybe Facebook will leave
shut
as well.
down?
No, not will shut down, will leave that project as well. So, we should be afraid that, the large people...
The good point here is, let's say Libra fails. How bad is it for crypto?
It's bad.
I would like to offer a grain of salt. I think that at the end, it might be actually a good move that the big companies left.
Because
if it's supposed to be a consortium, it's better to have 20 small ones instead of one large one.
small ones who pay $10 million to join, but still.
Smallish.
But it's a little smallish, and you totally...
Smaller ones.
So why is it better to have them?
It's more
I'm
decentralized.
going with you on that.
You can't call a system decentralized if it's comprised of 5 gigantic companies
Mega
who
fangish.
control
With the
your
same
life in any
interest.
other aspect anyhow.
Still.
I think we're reading too much into it. I think that the unique thing about those companies, except for booking holdings, which is different, is that if you run a payment system, you're not, you have a constant interaction with the regulator. You always are getting audited, you're always getting checked. And so the leverage that the government has on you is very different than if you're a Facebook, which you're a media provider, and the government can do very little against you based on the rules.
But it's trying.
It's trying, but,
Yeah,
it's hard. But if you're PayPal, the US can say, we're auditing you now, and now
Right,
PayPal
right.
gets stuck. On the flip side, I think that Libra is something that is competitive with some of those companies' other offerings, right? For PayPal, for Visa, for MasterCard, all those guys, it's competitive for them. And so my thinking is, and going with Nimrod's speculation, I think they were in it because they thought, why not bet on both horses? Bet on my existing horse and also put a little bit of money in the new thing, and maybe that'll give me in a good position. And if they leave now, but then in a year or two, they want to join again, I'm sure nobody will tell them, oh no, MasterCard, you left when the senators threatened you, so you can't come back. And so it's a tactical decision for them. They can come back
But it's
when
a bad
sentiment
sign
changes.
for the others. It's a bad sign for the smaller ones. The smaller ones in that consortium
Yes.
would think
Yes
that
or
if
no?
the big guys left,
Listen, I haven't received a threatening letter from a senator yet, so I'm not important enough. When you get a letter from a senator, it means what you're doing is interesting and monumental enough to get
He's
that
still
sort of
from
attention.
Hawaii,
So. What?
He's still from Hawaii.
But senators,
But Sherrod Brown was on
senators
that
are a big
letter
deal,
as well.
right? So.
Where was she from?
maybe there are other letters not from Hawaii that we don't know about.
Sherrod Brown.
Sherrod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. But it's true. Look, those letters were not only that. Even the Secretary of Treasury in the United States, Mnuchin, came out saying, "Yeah, we completely support these letters, and we will fuck you, as you said, if you go ahead with this."
Look at what happened. Advertising privacy that got 1-2 hearings, and this is something that's not even out yet, and it's getting more attention, and the government is dealing with it. It means they think it's interesting.
I want to not only that. You
Risky.
gave me a perfect segue to our next when we're still within Facebook, because needless to say, the last time Zuckerberg went up to Capitol Hill, so to speak, didn't really go so well. And the reason was that he was called up last time, may account also for the lack of trust of the regulators in Facebook. And to remind everybody, it was Cambridge Analytica. But let me show you guys Zuckerberg last time on the Hill facing a congressional hearing, and why I personally believe that him defending this may not go so well. Let's have a listen to Mark Zuckerberg the last time Mark Zuckerberg went up to Capitol Hill.
Who's your biggest competitor?
Senator, we have a lot of competitors.
Who's your biggest?
I think the categories of, do you want just one? I'm not sure I can give one, but can I give a bunch? Mm-hmm. So there are 3 categories that I would focus on. One are the other tech platforms, so Google, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft. We overlap with them in different ways.
Do they provide the same service you provide?
In different ways, different parts of it,
Let me put it
yes.
this way. If I buy a Ford and it doesn't work well and I don't like it, I can buy a Chevy. If I'm upset with Facebook, what's the equivalent product that I can go sign up for?
Well, there's the second category that I was going to talk about.
I'm not talking about categories. I'm talking about is there real competition you face? Because car companies face a lot of competition. If they make a defective car, it gets out in the world, people stop buying that car, they buy another one. Is it an alternative to Facebook in the private sector?
Yes, Senator. The average American uses 8 different apps to communicate with their friends and stay in touch with people, ranging from texting apps to email.
Which is the same service you provide.
Well, we provide a number of different services.
Is Twitter the same as what you do?
It overlaps with a portion of what we do.
You don't think you have a monopoly?
It certainly doesn't feel like that to me.
Okay.
Firstly, before we dissect and bash him, Zach, do we think Facebook's a monopoly? It's a good question.
In the ages of the 40s, in our ages, maybe, yes, it is. It is. However, newcomers are taking it into their market share. And the younger generation does not see Facebook as something cool to be in.
No,
and
but they
go,
see Instagram, and Instagram is owned by Facebook.
What's up?
Yeah.
I mean, do we think Facebook is a monopoly?
Yeah.
In its sphere? I personally do.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
I think it's a complicated question. I think it's a complicated question.
I think the senator.
Give me a complicated answer.
I think the senator asked it. He asked a good question. If I have a Ford and it doesn't work, I buy a Chevy. If I'm on
I don't
Facebook
like you,
and
where
I
the
don't
fuck
like
do I
the
go?
service, where do I go? So, the answer Mark Zuckerberg gave is that you go to you have to go to 5 or 6 different
Take the
other
bus instead
apps.
of the Chevy.
Yeah,
And,
take the bus back to the Chevy.
You need to go buy wheels, and then you need to go, buy a steering wheel, and then you. It's not like.
It reminds me, I've worked several years for Intel, and Intel was very much like Facebook in its area, and it didn't have too much of competitors, and its market share was overwhelming, about over 85%. And we had AMD or whatever other, and Intel could not increase its market share, so the only choice for Intel to do was to increase the whole cake, the whole ecosystem. So this is what we were doing at Intel Capital. We're trying to increase the whole ecosystem and the whole cake by itself in order to stay with the same market share in order to grow.
Exactly.
So maybe Facebook will have to be doing the same thing, but no one was attacking Intel. The antitrust regulators were hinting on Intel in order to support AMD or to support its competitors. To that sense. So Facebook might have to do the same thing, but it's not the only one that has too large of a market share.
Facebook.
Yeah.
I think if you talk about what is a monopoly, I think that it's important to look at timescales. So Facebook is maybe a monopoly at a certain point in time, but if you look at TikTok, that's a new thing that's coming up.
From China, people.
Yep.
Instagram.
From China. How dangerous is TikTok? That's a great point.
Remember that Instagram and WhatsApp were not Facebook properties, and they were a significant threat to the Facebook
I know,
platform.
then they bought them. That's what Agada said, and they bought them.
So what's the barrier to entry? So when you say there's a monopoly, it has to do also with not just are you a monopoly, but is there a barrier to entry? And so I think it's a complicated field, and that they might be a monopoly, but that doesn't mean they get to rule the world for 30 years. They might rule it for 2-3 years, but what's going to happen in the future? So I think
The newcomer will come.
they might both be a monopoly, and Mark not feeling it like one because he still has to fight for his life all the time because somebody new brings a new thing every so often, like TikTok, like something else.
Right.
And so I think it's more complicated than that. By the way, Google is much more of a monopoly than Facebook is.
Entirely.
And
Yep.
they're
no
not
one
in the
gets
congressional
into
hearing.
Google. No
Right?
one's
Getting
trying
pissed
to
at them, so.
put down.
No, and the question
think-
is, when they finish with Facebook, will they get into Google?
I think the problem is different. I think that we need to look at this sort of thing from the looking at American politics. You have to look at who's ruling the government and who's there. So the Republicans are in power. And the Republicans have a long-standing criticism of Facebook and of Twitter, that they shadow ban Republicans.
So do the Democrats.
But the Republicans have a theory that the West Coast liberal tech companies are trying to reduce the reach of companies, and that happened to do with InfoWars being banned and all kinds of banned outlets being banned. So they think there's a loss of control of the media story, and therefore things like Gab become more popular. And so I think they're not just angry at Facebook for privacy; they're also trying to say they think media is biased. they're trying to say media can't be biased. So I think there's a
Good
U.S.
luck.
politics angle as well.
No, there's definitely U.S. politics which I think is also affecting Ton. And have to remind everybody, 2020 is an election year in the United States.
Yeah.
And one of the big themes is the breakup of big tech companies.
Right.
There is a woman running for the ticket of the Democratic Party. That's her agenda.
Yes.
You know, break up big tech, break up big tech. Now, Zuckerberg, I want to go back to that moment in the hearing of, not, you know, the hearing where he was, last time he was called up to the Hill. Because here's my fear for Libra, is if the following will happen again, and this doesn't look good. Let's take a look.
Mr. Zuckerberg, would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No.
If you've messaged anybody this week, would you share with us the names of the people you've messaged?
Senator, no, I would probably not choose to do that publicly here.
I think that may be what this is all about. Your right to privacy, the limits of your right to privacy, and how much you give away in modern America in the name of, quote, connecting people around the world.
Facebook is so dirty when it comes to privacy, to the last elections. Can they even shed that dirt? And I know they're distanced from the Libra Association, and it's a big fucking, but we all know, and Washington knows, that Facebook is behind Libra. Is it too dirty? Is Facebook too dirty, quote unquote, to actually pull through?
I don't think. I mean, I don't think there's privacy anymore.
And we,
No, that's one.
There isn't. But do you want there to be? Because you think about it, we might not care, right? Because
No,
we
But
still-
the rest of the world
I
does.
do care.
You don't care enough to not use Facebook or to not let your
No,
kids
but
use
maybe-
Facebook.
but
You don't care
maybe-
enough. But the senators, they care for you, and that's their job, right?
And America,
they-
you cannot tell Americans, even though,
Yeah.
of course they don't, but you cannot tell Americans who still believe in the right to privacy. I agree with you. Privacy is dead, okay? Privacy has died since 2007. Few people understand it in the world, and those who do want it back, and those who don't understand it still will fight for it.
I disagree. I think the American public
Shoot.
does not care about privacy.
Yeah.
I think that
The
is
American public doesn't care
does
about
not
privacy?
The public in general
Okay,
is
convince
really
me.
dumb.
I think the public.
Are you
if-
nuts?
I don't
Okay.
think they understand the.
I think they're happy to
the-
receive services that are worth a lot of money for free.
Coupons. They don't care.
They're happy
get
to
coupons.
share their
They're
data.
fine
They
with
don't
that.
care. As long as it doesn't affect their life in a negative way, they don't care.
But they don't know how it affects their life in a negative way. That's the
So maybe-
Agada Nelama. How do you say like the?
That's the
Hidden
that's
hand of
the
the
hidden.
So
Yeah.
maybe we're witnessing the complete annihilation of the nation-state model and the corporate state like Facebook. Currently, the nation-state has a monopoly on your privacy and identity, right? The nation-state knows everything about you.
Yeah. And nobody cares enough. That's
Yeah,
what you
so-
say.
So
Let's
maybe
don't
now
care enough.
Facebook and Libra might be just the final step of the.
What do you mean they
But
know
that's not
everything
true- but that's
about
not
you? They
true in
don't
the
know
US.
where
The-
like
the
where
state-
you sleep.
That's not
The
true.
whole
In the
idea is
US
that we
in the
don't
US,
want
that's
the
not true.
nation state. Look,
But
China
in the,
does.
in the
No,
US, in the
But
US,
the
that's not true.
U.S.
Exactly.
What do you mean? They have access to everything.
No, they don't.
They don't know
What do you
where
mean?
you
That-
In the US,
sleep.
in the
Ask
US,
Snowden what
so
they
the
don't
U.S.
know.
is different. Is different in the sense that
Exactly.
the U.S. federal and the state bodies are different. You don't share data between different agencies. I can tell you from my experiences living in the U.S. is that the government knows less about you in many ways than you would think because they have limits and they have problems. Google knows more about you than
Facebook knows
does
more
than-
about you
Yeah,
than the
Facebook
than
government.
the
and
U.S.
Google
ever
know.
did. Than the government ever did.
I don't know because I'm a citizen of Israel, not
Right.
of the US. And in Israel, you get like peculiar emails from the
In Israel, they
internal
know everything
affair-
about you.
Yeah, it's insane. They know everything about you, which
But-
they're not supposed to. So
But in the U.S. they don't.
yeah, but maybe it's not that bad. I mean, maybe they can stop, sending you bullshit.
That is a philosophical question. The thing
yeah,
is, you
but,
cannot
but-
convince
but-
a large group of
but-
people.
But.
Okay, I'm cutting you off. Yes.
What do you mean? It's only my seventh sentence. That's a regular.
Okay,
that's a regular me.
but.
So
Me being
I
myself.
lost my track of thought. So maybe it's
I'll
not a
turn to the
bad
women.
thing.
Just
If we already complied with the fact that we privacy is dead, maybe it could be put in good use by the hands of the new kind of states that are comprised of international organizations like Facebook, like Google. I think I'd
new
much rather
governments.
be a citizen of Google who knows me really well and
I'm horrified by you right now. I'm sorry. Is that
Oh,
anybody
it's
else
fine.
horrified here right
I'm
now?
just saying.
Why? Have you
I'm
tried-
just
No, I
saying.
want to know why. I want to know why is it better? Like, why do you?
And
why
you're a
do you
man in the
prefer?
Bitcoin world? Go ahead.
No,
'Cause I
why
think-
do you?
Why do you think? Yeah.
Why do you
Because
think-
these organizations are at least smart.
That was hard.
Right now, you're
The
living.
fact that they're
you're
smart
living
does
in
not mean that they
democracies.
work on your,
No,
to your
fine,
best
but
interests.
let's say in a nation state, you're a shareholder of the nation state. Let's say
Yeah, but
you're,
in the tech world, you're a commodity. My information, your information, your
it's
information, your
the
information.
same thing
It's
in
the
the
same thing
nation
in the
state.
nation, yeah.
Why?
They just pretend to care about
Why
us more.
do you care as a nation state? Why do you care about the size of the population? Because of the manufacturing power
Exactly.
and your ability to go to war
And taxing.
and taxation. Yeah,
Right.
but that's a derivative. And why would you care if you become a citizen of
You're
a
killing
national?
Gael. You're killing her. You're killing her. This panel is over. It's
No, I am dying here.
I do think there's a difference, because when you are a nation state and you lose and you share information about your citizens, that is a sign of weakness. That is you giving up power about your citizens to other people. When you're a private company and you sell access, that's a win for you. And so as a private company, sharing that information in a smart way is good business.
If you're a
but as the
public
government
company-
sharing that information
But-
is a negative thing for you.
No,
But if
you
you're a
sell
public
it in
company and
return
all
for
of the
something.
citizens of this company are holding the stocks of
But
this
isn't,
company,
guys,
so
isn't the whole idea, aren't we like, isn't the whole idea behind Bitcoin, or let me resurrect Satoshi Nakamoto, whomever she is, isn't the whole idea behind what we're doing here is decentralization, power to the people? I'm simplifying it right now. I own my money. I own my information. Nobody
yes,
owns
but don't
me.
you think that the complete, and again, I'm not a libertarian, but don't you think that the annihilation of the nation state becoming more of a corporate state is a phase on that way?
No, not
I do.
necessarily.
I totally do. I don't think there's
Not
any way.
necessarily. You're replacing one
Well,
source
exactly
of
one
power
source of
with
power with
another
another.
one.
If you look,
that
No,
is-
but
if you look at the history, if you look at the going to the company store in rural America when you were going for coal, if you look at the Indian state owned by the British East India Trading Company, from what we've learned in history, if a company is the nation state, you are worse off as a citizen than if it is a democratic government. Because the democratic government, you can vote and replace them. But if you're India and you are
Yeah, look
owned
at
by
the
a
U.S.
private
president
company,
right now.
What?
Look at the U.S. president
But
right
that
now.
was a vote.
That was about.
And he
Not
has,
a popular
and he
vote.
has,
And
he
it's
has,
limited.
Not a popular
And
vote.
it's
knows
limited
if he's
in
gonna
term.
if he's gonna be not good at getting elected, again,
Unlike
he
in
will be
Israel,
removed.
but it's limited in term.
And look at the House, look at the Senate. there are balances.
Look at the Prime Minister
Yeah, but you
of the
need
UK.
those checks
Look
and
at our
balances.
Prime Minister.
Can you fire Mark Zuckerberg? Can you vote him out?
Myself? Probably
can
not.
anybody? Nobody can.
I don't,
Nobody
I
can
don't know
do it, exactly.
I don't know, it's a public
So-
company.
Same thing about
It's a
Papa
different-
Dorf, same thing about, I mean, we've said that's Binance, I mean, it's the danger in that, Amazon,
Is he accountable to you? in
exactly,
any
who
way?
is he accountable to? Who
And
checks him?
He might be a great
Shareholders
guy,
at
but
the
is he
end.
accountable?
But shareholder,
Shareholders
but
at
you're
the
not a
Specifically,
shareholder.
that he can't be
Right
fired.
now,
specifically.
but I could
But
buy
you-
shares. I could become a citizen of, like, I could become a shareholder of Amazon.
Well, he needs to put it up to him, need to be able to afford to become a shareholder, and that's another question. But let's go back to the sphere. Tether, okay? We're moving ahead. Tether daily trading exceeds Bitcoin, but can we trust this stable coin? Tether, the so-called bastard child, which the sphere loves to hate on, is moving the market, folks. Let me quote you, Being Crypto, a well-reported article by them. Tether, or USDT, has been controversial for some time, to say the least. However, this has done little to nothing to curtail its rise. In fact, Tether is now the most popular cryptocurrency in the entire market. It even consistently boasts higher trading volumes than Bitcoin does. Firstly, what is the reason behind that, in your opinion, guys?
The
Yeah, no, just break it down.
The
we
trading
see it.
volume?
Yeah.
China.
China?
China.
China. China. China.
I'm
China?
quoting- Yeah, China.
Yeah.
China.
Okay. Let me ask you this, as we do here: is it good or bad for not necessarily the Jews, which are us, but is it good or bad for the sphere?
The trading volume of Tether is
Tether, or needless to say, it's not necessarily good news, because Tether also, the on-chain metrics of Tether have some room for concern. People would argue.
Yes.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
The fact that Tether is doing is so-called moving the market, and we know what Tether is. What's your personal opinion about Tether? Actually, let's start with that. We're amongst friends and nobody's watching.
Nobody's watching. Right? No, listen.
It was never decentralized in the first place. man.
Exactly.
I think we all understand the value of a stablecoin offering. I think we understand why crypto traders want to also be able to have dollar positions without having to leave and pay the percentages and go back to the normal banking system.
especially where some of them don't have the option to go back to
Right,
the banking system.
exactly. I think that more regulated stablecoins require to do more things, and so there's a place in the market for the product. And having Tether go down a path where it's less regulated and more cowboyish has its pluses and negatives. I wouldn't say I'm qualified to say anything about, beyond that, in that I understand why the market is interested in it. And anything that's big, you should cover and understand.
But let me ask you this: 104 addresses control 70% of the circulating supplies. This effectively means that 104 addresses have, in total, 2.8 billion worth of USDT. Given the shadiness surrounding USDT, this should be especially concerning.
But USDT is not a currency where there's supply and demand. Doesn't matter, in the sense that it's always supposed to be worth $1. There are accounts with more than $2 billion in the normal world. Some people own $100 billion. Some private people, Jeff Bezos has more than $2 billion.
Jeff Bezos, who is very much controlling of Amazon. Just saying, yes.
Well, of Amazon. But
Amazon.
But Amazon is. If I personally had all the USDT in the world, what would that do except make me rich? I wouldn't be able to affect the markets in any significant way, because anybody else could always still buy USDT for $1. And if I wanted to sell it, it would always still be $1. So what does it matter?
It's not affecting the market price, right? You're not a market maker. Exactly.
Right.
The concentration doesn't make you a market maker. And it was never decentralized in the first place. Bitcoin is decentralized. Ethereum isn't to many extents.
If you learned that 104 people have 70% of the money in Citibank, how would that affect anything? So Citibank keeps people's money. Okay. That's not an interesting fact.
No, it's just a concentration of the circulating supply.
Exchanges.
Exactly.
Like a part of the 104 is probably exchanges that are holding USDT.
Well, where it becomes interesting is if, and this is something I wouldn't know, but if Tether, as some people claim, is not fully backed, that might be showing that there are people.
It.
Yeah, it's not fully backed.
No, they said it doesn't have to be.
They said it wasn't.
And that's not concerning?
Well,
that
is concerning.
And also you showed
earlier,
they said it's 100% backed by their reserve, and then there's like a list of things that can be on their reserve, and like it's pretty random. You can show it again if you have it, but it's pretty random. It's like currencies and other things and tomatoes and whatever.
Yeah, tomatoes and my grandmother's ring.
100% reserved unless we don't feel like it.
It's 100% reserved.
Unless
what we think is a reserve.
Unless it's not.
Yeah. Okay. Finally, guys, just to wrap this up, because this is how I'm going to wrap this up. Finally, guys, listen to me. And you've been phenomenal. eToro has launched the crypto portfolio weighted by Twitter mentions to help, investors read the market. I'm taking this to a different direction. And let's be honest with ourselves. Can anyone really predict this market, guys? Does anything even mean anything when it comes to the rise and drop of prices?
I actually think that if anything can give some sort of prediction is like Twitter.
What? Because the psychological sentiment. It's just the sentiment. And just the sentiment moves this market?
Not just, but a lot of it is moved by sentiment because there is not enough fundamentals yet. And even when there are fundamentals, you see sentiment affecting more.
Right.
So if they actually have, so first of all, I think it's genius, and if they have, it's a sophisticated enough algorithm that knows how to remove the noise and figure out the sentiment per coin.
Isn't Twitter just noise? I'm sorry, I'm going to pose the hard question.
I don't think that in the crypto ecosystem, and again, because of Simplex does what he does. We basically serve the retail industry,
right?
The retail audience for the industry. So we definitely see a huge correlation between news and purchases. So I mean,
look, I'm posing the tough questions because Donald Trump one can argue that Donald Trump controls the regular markets. He tweets something and the markets go up and down.
Yeah, but in regular markets, it could be considered as a horoscope, to just understand
and if it's people's
sentiment.
Sentiments,
But here,
God help us all. But
I remember about 7-10 years ago reading a scientific article analyzing the correlation between Twitter sentiment and normal stock prices. This was before Bitcoin.
Right, it was before.
And the article came out and said there is a 3-day lead time in signal on Twitter versus the stock markets. And so I think it's an agreed upon fact that for normal stock markets, which are based not just on sentiment, but also on reports and analysis and revenue, that Twitter does have lead, and therefore all the big hedge funds all have Twitter desks and understand what's going on. Crypto, which is something where the reports are not nearly as good, and of course it's going to be affected by sentiment, and of course that's going to give you a signal for the next few days.
But isn't it affected just by sentiment, was my question.
I think on the short term, everything is affected only by sentiment.
Okay, folks, raise your glasses. You've been fabulous. What would you say to Mark Zuckerberg before he goes into that hearing?
Second test on your driving test. This is your second test.
You
always pass on your second test.
Okay, great. What would you say to
pass.
Mark Zuckerberg before he goes into that hearing next week?
Blink more.
That's what I wanted to say. You stole it from me.
Okay, other than
Jesus,
blink
I have
more.
to think about something. So move.
Yeah,
move,
what
move
would
on.
you say to Zuck?
No, keep doing you, man.
Keep doing you. Okay, Zuck, keep doing you. We were BLOCKTV, Blockchain and Booze. That was it. Have a great day.
Cheers.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.